Bob Marley was in the middle of No Woman, No Cry when a woman's scream cut through 12,000 voices like a knife. "Bob, I have 3 months to live." The entire arena went silent. Bob stopped singing mid-verse. His band, confused, gradually let the music fade. 12,000 people turned to look for the source of that desperate voice. What Bob did next, nobody saw coming. Not the crowd, not his band, and especially not Catherine Walsh, the woman who had just screamed those 7 words with everything she had left. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Marley Files: The Untold Stories. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shape the legends we know today. 0 to 50 End. The full story. March 15th, 1980. Massachusetts General Hospital, Boston. The diagnosis was devastating. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months, maybe 4. "I'm very sorry, Miss Walsh." Catherine Walsh sat perfectly still. She was 34 years old, a high school English teacher, healthy her entire life, and now she was dying. "If you had 3 months," Catherine asked the doctor quietly, "would you spend them in a hospital?" Chen looked surprised by the question. He paused, then answered honestly, "My father refused treatment for his cancer. He spent his last months fishing, traveling, and being with family. He died peacefully. My mother fought until the very end. She suffered through every treatment." "She also died?" He paused. "I don't know which was right, but I know my father smiled more." Therine stood up. "Thank you for your honesty." She walked out of that hospital and never came back. At night, alone in her Cambridge apartment, Catherine did what she always did when life felt too heavy. She put on Bob Marley's redemption song. She had discovered Bob's music in college, when her mother died suddenly. His voice, the way it held both pain and hope simultaneously, had saved her then. Since then, his music had been her companion through everything. "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, Therine listened to those words and felt something crack open inside her. She was free now, wasn't she? Free from the future she'd been planning. Free from responsibilities that no longer mattered. 3 months. What would she do with them there? The answer came immediately. She would see Bob Marley live. He grabbed the newspaper. There in the entertainment section, Bob Marley and the Wailers. Boston Garden. May 8th. May 8th. She'd still be alive then. Barely maybe, but alive. Catherine bought a ticket the next day. Front section. She spent money she'd been saving for a car she'd never drive. But Catherine wasn't just going to watch Bob perform. She was going to talk to him somehow. She was going to let him know what his music meant to her. She'd spent her entire life being polite, following rules, not making a scene. And what had it gotten her? 34 years and a death sentence. She was done being quiet. The weeks between March and May were strange. Catherine quit her teaching job, stopped returning phone calls, sold most of her possessions. Every single day she listened to Bob Marley's music, not as background noise, but as medicine, as prayer. Her sister drove up from Providence begging her to reconsider treatment. "Kathy, you can't just give up." "I'm not giving up, Sarah," Catherine replied. "I'm fighting for 90 days of actually living, instead of 6 months of dying slowly in a hospital." I 8th, 1980, Boston. Garden at 30 p.m. Catherine stood outside the arena, feeling her body's weakness. She'd lost 18 pounds in 8 weeks. Her clothes hung loose, but she'd used every bit of energy to look alive. Makeup, a bright yellow dress, her mother's earrings. Her best friend Jennifer had insisted on coming. Jennifer didn't know about the cancer. Catherine had said she was going through something, but would explain later. There wouldn't be a later. The arena was packed, 12,000 people buzzing with anticipation. Catherine could feel the energy. So much life surrounding her as hers drained away. 7th row center, close enough that if she screamed loud enough, Bob might hear her and away. 8:45 p.m., the lights went down. The crowd erupted and Bob Marley walked onto that stage. Catherine's breath caught. There he was, the man whose voice had carried her through the darkest moments of her life. Bo, he opened with Trenchtown Rock. The arena transformed into pure energy. Catherine tried to join in, but her body was too weak. She could barely stand. Bob performed song after song, each one perfect, but she still hadn't found her courage. And then Bob began playing No Woman, No Cry. This was her song. The song that had saved her when her mother died. The song that promised her everything would be all right. Except everything wasn't all right. Everything was ending. Bob sang the first verse. Catherine started crying, not quietly. The grief she'd been holding back for 8 weeks came pouring out. Jennifer put an arm around her. "Kathy, what's wrong, Kat?" Herring realized this was her moment. Right now. She stood up. Jennifer tried to pull her back down. "Kathy, what are you doing?" But Catherine opened her mouth and screamed with everything she had. "Bob, I have 3 months to live." The arena went silent. The music didn't stop immediately. The band was confused. But Bob stopped singing. He looked out into the crowd. 12,000 people turned to stare at Catherine. Bob was shading his eyes against the lights. "Who said that?" "Where are you?" Catherine raised her shaking hand. "Here, I'm here." People moved aside. The spotlight found her. Bob saw her. He didn't smile. He just looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something that made Catherine's knees almost give out. "Come here. Sister. Come to the stage, auntie." A crowd erupted. Security guards looked at each other, uncertain, but Bob was nodding. "Let her through, please." Jennifer stared at Catherine in shock. 3 months, Kathy? What does that mean?" But Catherine was already moving. People helped her toward the stage. Her legs felt like water. Yurdi helped lift her onto the stage. Bob walked toward her. He reached out and took both her hands. "What's your name, sister?" "Catherine." "Catherine Walsh, Catherine," Bob repeated gently. Tell everyone." "What did you mean, Catherine?" Anne looked out at 12,000 faces, all waiting. She spoke into the microphone Bob held between them. "I have cancer," Catherine said. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave me 3 months to live. That was 8 weeks ago. Complete." His silence fell over Boston Garden. "I spent my whole life being careful, doing the right thing. And your music," her voice broke. "Your music was the only thing that made me feel like it was okay to just exist. Like I didn't have to be perfect, Bob Z." Yes glistened. He squeezed her hands tighter. "And I knew I was dying. And I knew I'd never get another chance. So I had to tell you. I had to say thank you. Because if I'm going to die, I want you to know that your music made my life worth living." The Aaron. I erupted in tears. Bob pulled Catherine into a hug. He was crying too. When he pulled back, Bob smiled at her. "Catherine, I want to tell you something." He turned to the crowd. "My mother used to say that music is medicine. Not medicine like doctors give you. Medicine for the spirit." He looked back at Catherine. "You said my music made your life worth living. But you made my music worth singing. Every person like you who lets music heal them. You're the reason we do this." The crowd applauded, but Bob held up his hand. "How much time do you have left?" "About 4 weeks now," Bob nodded. "Then we have 4 weeks to prove the doctors wrong. 4 weeks to show them that music heals what medicine can't." He turned to his band. "This song is for Catherine." Bob kept Catherine on stage, his arm around her shoulders. He started singing 3 Little Birds, but he wasn't singing to the crowd. He was singing to Catherine. "Don't worry about a thing. 'Cause every little thing gonna be all right." Catherine cried so hard she could barely breathe. Bob pulled her closer, his voice steady in her ear. As he sang, as 12,000 people joined in, Catherine felt something shift. Not a cure, but something just as powerful. Hope. She remembered she was still alive. Right now, in this moment, she was alive. And the song ended. Applause went on for 5 minutes. Bob kept his arm around Catherine. "Catherine, promise me something, anything. Promise me you'll fight. Not with medicine if you don't want to, but fight with life. Fight with joy. Fight with music. Promise me." Catherine nodded, unable to speak. Bob smiled. "Good, because I'm going to check on you. E.W. Hasn't joking." 2 days later, a package arrived. A cassette tape with a note. "Catherine, this is a private recording from rehearsal. Listen when things get hard. You are stronger than you know. Bob, Kathy." Ryan played it every day and something happened. Something doctors couldn't explain. Catherine didn't die in 4 weeks. She didn't die in 3 months. She didn't die that summer. The cancer was still there, but her body stabilized for woe years Catherine lived. Not in a hospital, not in pain. She lived fully, joyfully. She traveled. She reconnected with friends. She went to 3 more Bob Marley concerts. Every time Bob remembered her, he'd spot her in the crowd and smile. On Ma. 11th, 1981, Bob Marley died of cancer. He was 36 years old. When Catherine heard the news, she was in her apartment listening to that cassette tape Bob had sent her. She sat on her floor and wept for hours, not just for Bob, but for everything that moment on stage had meant. Bobby had understood something the doctors never could. He understood that hope isn't about denial. It's about choosing to live fully in whatever time you have. He understood that music reaches places medicine can't touch. In months after Bob's death, Catherine did something that surprised everyone who knew her. She started visiting other cancer patients at Massachusetts General Hospital, the same hospital she'd walked out of a year earlier. She'd sit with them, especially the ones who'd given up hope. She'd tell them about Bob Marley, about that night in Boston, about screaming 7 words that changed everything. And she'd play them that cassette tape list. And she'd say to patients lying in bed, staring at ceilings, waiting to die, "This isn't about living forever. It's about living now. Right now, this moment." One patient, a 42-year-old man named Thomas, listened to Catherine's story and started crying. He'd been lying in that hospital bed for 3 weeks, refusing to see his children, convinced he was already dead. "I'm scared," Thomas admitted to Catherine. "I'm so scared of dying that I've stopped living." Catherine held his hand. "I was scared too. But then Bob looked at me and sang. And I realized something. Fear of death was robbing me of life. The dying part, that's going to happen whether I'm afraid or not. But the living part? That's my choice." Every single day, Thomas went home the next week. He didn't get cured, but he got 6 more months with his family. 6 months of laughter, of love, of truly being present. When he died, his wife told Catherine, "You gave me my husband back. Not his body, but his spirit." Catherine continued this work through 1981 and into 1982. She wasn't a doctor or a therapist. She was just a woman who'd learned that hope is a choice. By summer 1982, Catherine's body was failing. The 2-year miracle was ending. She knew it, could feel it. Her sister Sarah wanted her to go back to the hospital. "Please, Kathy, let them make you comfortable at least." But Catherine refused. "I've been comfortable my whole life. Sarah, these last 2 years I've been alive. There's a difference." Catherine spent her final weeks in her apartment, surrounded by friends listening to Bob Marley's music on repeat. The cassette tape had worn thin from use, Bob's voice sometimes crackling and fading. But to Catherine, it was still perfect on. Her last day, August 12, 1982, Catherine was barely conscious. Sarah sat beside her bed holding her hand. The cassette player was on. 3 little birds playing softly. Catherine's eyes opened one last time. She looked at Sarah and smiled. "Tell them," Catherine whispered. "Tell them Bob was right. Every little thing. It really is going to be all right, though." See were her last words. At her funeral, Sarah kept her promise. She stood at the podium and told Catherine's story, the diagnosis, the concert, the scream, Bob's response, and the 2 years that weren't supposed to happen. "My sister was supposed to die in summer 1980, Sarah said, her voice breaking. "She died in summer 1982, that's 2 years. 730 extra days. Some people might say that's not a lot. But my sister lived more in those 2 years than most people live in 70. Sarah played Bob's cassette tape. His voice filled the church as hundreds of mourners, including dozens of cancer patients Catherine had counseled, wept together. After the funeral, something unexpected happened. People started sharing Catherine's story. Local newspapers picked it up, then national news. The story of the woman who screamed at Bob Marley and lived 2 years, longer than medicine said possible. Doctors were interviewed. They had no explanation. Spontaneous remission? Misdiagnosis? We can't say for certain, but cases like this, while rare, do happen. The human body is more complex than we understand. But Catherine's friends knew the truth. It wasn't just her body that had healed. It was her spirit. And that healing had started the moment Bob Marley chose to stop his concert, bring her on stage, and remind her that she mattered. Today, over 40 years later, Catherine's story is a reminder of the power of music and the human spirit. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Marley Files, The Untold Stories. Share this with someone who needs hope. One love.